Has made a big difference. We have,
Well, those laws that you're enforcing, were they on the books before Trump became president?
yes,
So all these laws were there before Trump became president, and Obama used them. Now, when we use them, all of a sudden we're Nazis.
Welcome back to Freedom Forge. If you care about law, order, and the future of this country, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe right now, because today's topic is something every American needs to hear. In this video, we're breaking down another intense Senate hearing where lawmakers questioned witnesses about immigration enforcement, deportation policies, and the controversial role of sanctuary cities. The discussion focused on how past administrations handled deportations, whether new proposals could effectively shut down enforcement, and what impacts sanctuary policies are having on crime and public safety. Let's get into it.
Your testimony, we'll do 5-minute rounds. Mr. Beer, is it accurate that Barack Obama deported 3 million people when he was president?
Those are total removals, not people deported from the interior.
What does that mean?
Well, there are people deported from the borders who never lived in the United States.
Were there people deported inside the United States?
Well, I mean, I think it's a little bit unfair to compare people deported at the border versus people in the interior. I think Jessica would agree with this.
Listen. You don't want to answer a question, that's fine, but don't tell me what's fair and unfair. Bottom line, did he use judicial warrants to deport anybody? When he deported somebody in the interior, did he have a judicial warrant?
No.
No. Why? Because it's stupid. Mr. Wolf, tell me what would happen if we adopted his approach. You can't deport anybody unless you have a judicial warrant. Would that be effectively the end of deportation?
I think it would. I mean, if you just look at
Don't you think that's what they want to do?
In part, absolutely.
Yeah, I think these people over here want to stop deportation.
So if you just look at the 1.5 or 1.6 million individuals here with a final order of removal, right? They've been through the judicial process. They've been to an immigration judge, probably an immigration board of appeals. And every time the judge says you don't have a legal right to be here, if you had to get a judicial warrant for each one of those, you'd be here for the next 20 years trying to remove the those 1.6.
But when a Democrat says you need a judicial warrant to deport somebody, they're turning. Obama didn't do it, did he?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
No, he didn't, because it's impossible. You just stop the whole system. You're not trying to reform ICE. You're trying to stop deportations. If it were up to you, we'd have more illegal immigrants. I hope people are paying attention to what the hell's going on in this country. Sheriff, tell me about what it's like to live next to a sanctuary county.
well, we're the only ones that actually work with ICE and are able to get people out based on our 287G. We turn them over to ICE. We arrest them for criminal violations outside of their immigration status. They come and they pick them up and they're gone. And I'll tell you, it's made a big difference.
Well, those laws that you're enforcing, were they on the books before Trump became president?
Yes.
So all these laws were there before Trump became president, and Obama used them. Now, when we use them, all of a sudden we're Nazis. I think people see through this. Do you believe sanctuary city policy is bad for crime, Mr. Chapman?
I do. I think, the ability, if you look at us and compare it to our next door neighbor there, they, I think, maybe have notified ICE maybe about 7 times. Last year, it was 184 times for us. Those are people that could have been released back to our community, that could have committed other crimes, and we don't need that here. That's it's irresponsible of me to allow that to happen and let these people back in our community.
Ms. Vaughn, how would you, what's your takeaway about sanctuary city policy? What damage has it done to our country, if any?
Well, there's the cost of the lives lost to illegal aliens who were released by sanctuaries. That's priceless. There's the fiscal.
This case behind me, Jelani, is that his name? He should have been deported. Do you agree, Ms. Vaughn?
Absolutely, yes.
You know, you're talking about suing somebody who's been abused by the government. Why don't we sue local prosecutors who put this in motion? I'd love to do that. So I'm going to try to find a way to give victims a chance to go to court when a local prosecutor puts back on the streets somebody with 30 priors. Do you support that idea, empowering people?
I do. I think that would be an effective deterrent to sanctuary policies because they're adopting.
Make these counties and cities pay.
Right. They're adopted for political reasons, not public safety reasons.
Yeah, what's the upside of ignoring federal law and keeping people like this out of federal custody? It's a political choice. So let me ask you this question. There was a clerk of court, Mr. Wolf, in Kentucky that did not want to issue a marriage license to a gay couple in spite of the fact the Supreme Court said that gay marriage was legal. And she went to jail. Do you think that's a good outcome? Should she have gone to jail for refusing to obey the law?
I think it's important to obey the law.
Yeah, I do too. And when I suggested that the clerk of court, who had a religious view, that she could not in good conscience issue a marriage license to a gay couple, even though the law required, she needed to get out of her job. Boy, what a great guy I was then. Now the shoe's on the other foot. All of a sudden, that's not a good idea. What you want to do is just ignore the laws you don't like. Is that where we're headed, Mr. Wolf?
I believe it is.
Well, let's stop it now. Let's end this madness. There is no upside to sanctuary cities. It's all downside. Senator Merkley.
Right out of the gate, one of the biggest moments in this hearing was the discussion around deportations under former President Barack Obama. The number that gets thrown around is about 3 million deportations. But what the senator pushed for, and rightly so, was clarity. Were those actually people living inside the United States, or were many of them stopped and removed at the border? That distinction matters, because there's a big difference between someone who just crossed the border and someone who has been living in the country for years. And what became clear during this exchange is that statistics can be used in ways that don't always tell the full story. Then the conversation shifted to something even more critical. The idea that deportations should require judicial warrants in every single case. Now let's think about that logically. According to the testimony, there are over 1 million individuals already with final orders of removal. That means they've gone through the legal process. They've stood before an immigration judge. Their cases have been reviewed, and the decision has been made. They do not have a legal right to remain in the country. So if you now say that every single one of those cases requires an additional judicial warrant before enforcement can happen, what are you really doing? You're not reforming the system. You're stalling it. You're effectively shutting it down. Even the witness acknowledged that requiring warrants across the board would bring deportations to a halt. And that raises a serious question. Is the goal here to improve the system or to stop enforcement altogether? As a right-leaning patriot, I believe in a system that is fair, but also functional. Laws mean nothing if they are not enforced. And if someone has already gone through due process and received a final order of removal, then the law must be carried out. Otherwise, what message are we sending? We're saying that the law is optional. Now let's talk about sanctuary cities, because this is where things get even more real. One of the most powerful testimonies came from a sheriff who explained the difference between jurisdictions that cooperate with federal immigration authorities and those that don't. In his county, they work directly with ICE. When someone commits a crime, they're arrested, processed, and if they are in the country illegally, they are handed over to federal authorities. And the result? Safer communities. He made it clear that this cooperation has made a significant difference. Meanwhile, neighboring sanctuary jurisdictions barely notify ICE at all. That means individuals who have already committed crimes are released back into the community instead of being removed. Let that sink in. These are not theoretical risks. These are real people, real crimes, and real consequences. Another witness pointed out something that often gets ignored in these debates. The cost of sanctuary policies is not just financial. It's human. Lives have been lost because individuals who should have been deported were instead released. And yet, these policies continue. Why? According to the testimony, these decisions are often political, not based on public safety. That's a serious accusation. But when you look at the evidence presented, differences in crime reporting, lack of cooperation, repeated releases of offenders, it's hard to ignore. Then the hearing took an interesting turn into the idea of accountability. One suggestion raised was allowing victims to take legal action against local officials whose policies may have contributed to crimes. That's a bold idea, but it speaks to a deeper issue. When leaders make decisions that put communities at risk, should they be held responsible? I believe they should. Accountability cannot stop at the individual level. It has to extend to the systems and policies that enable failure. There was also a powerful comparison made during the hearing. A case was brought up about a clerk who refused to follow the law and face consequences for it. The point being made was simple. In America, you don't get to pick and choose which laws to follow. And that principle should apply across the board. If federal immigration law exists, it should be enforced. If local governments choose to ignore it, then we have a serious problem, not just legally, but constitutionally. Because what we're really talking about here is the rule of law. You cannot have a functioning society where laws are selectively enforced based on political preference. That's not justice. That's chaos. And that's exactly what many Americans are starting to see. This hearing pulled back the curtain on a system that is struggling with consistency, accountability, and purpose. On one side, you have calls for stricter enforcement and adherence to existing laws. On the other, you have policies that limit cooperation and slow down the process. But at the end of the day, the question is simple. Are we going to enforce the laws of this country or not? Because if the answer is no, then we need to be honest about what that means. It means open-ended systems. It means weakened borders. And it means increased risk to public safety. As someone who believes in strong institutions, I don't think that's acceptable. We can have compassion. We can have a fair immigration system. But we must also have order. Without it, the system collapses under its own weight. This hearing is a reminder that these issues are not abstract. They affect real communities, real families, and the future of the nation. If you made it this far, you already understand how important this conversation is. So go ahead, like this video, subscribe to Freedom Forge, and share this with others who need to hear it. Because the more informed people are, the stronger this country becomes. Stay informed, stay engaged, and stand for the rule of law.